Season 12 just started, and as always it comes with some balancing changes and a bit of a rework for Lifeweaver. Let's have a look. Season 12 comes with a series of balancing changes that both fine-tune the Season 11 mid-season tank changes and tackle the next item on the community's concern list, and the next item being mobility. Some heroes are very mobile, and that has proven to be very powerful, but the trade-off has not always been there, which is something Blizzard hopes to fix with these balancing changes. There are some individual changes, but they're also bringing down the HP for some of the heroes to 225 HP. But anyways, let's run over the changes. I'll keep that small Lifeweaver rework for last. We're starting out with the tanks. D.Va. The maximum duration on her defense matrix was reduced from 3.5 to 3 seconds. It seems that Blizzard is putting D.Va on a diet. And yeah, some people have been a tad overly dramatic about this issue, in my opinion. And sure, it has been frustrating in some cases. And while apparently it doesn't benefit D.Va players that much, so Blizzard is reverting it. Orisa. The impact damage on her energy javelin was increased from 60 to 80. Again, as I've said in the last few videos, Orisa is underperforming. She's at the bottom of the pile, so they're slowly trying to bring her up back to reasonable levels. Zarya. The secondary fire minimum damage on the particle cannon was increased from 47 to 55, and the secondary fire maximum damage was increased from 95 to 110. I am slightly worried about that one. See, on my level, it is very hard to stop my teammates from shooting the bubbles. It's almost like they think she's going to explode in a flurry of confetti or candy or something. At which point, she points her beam at our supports and just kind of erases them. So if her secondary fire is going to do the same thing, yeah, I don't know, we'll see. Switching over to the damage heroes, and we're starting out with Junkrat. The projectile size on his frag launcher is now reduced by half after the second ricochet. But those projectiles also preserve slightly more velocity on that ricochet. So what they're doing here is bringing back the physics for Junkrat's projectiles to what they were in Overwatch 1. But also tuning it down a little bit, because after the second ricochet, those projectiles will be way smaller and easier to avoid. But to be fair, at some point you're going to need an engineering degree to properly play Junkrat, or just be very lucky. Sombra. Sombra's base health was reduced from 250 to 225. The bonus movement speed during stealth was increased from 45 to 60, and the impact damage on virus was increased from 25 to 35. Sombra is the first hero on this list that is kind of paying that mobility tax, where her HP is lowered because she is very mobile. On the other hand, that speed boost during stealth is substantial, and so is that impact damage boost for Virus. If you were not convinced up till now that Virus is her primary fire, you will be after this. Sojourn. The primary fire weapon spread on her railgun was reduced from 2 to 1.6 degrees. The critical hits now grant 10 energy, and the energy degeneration rate was reduced from 33 to 15 per second after 7 seconds. A few patches ago, they nerfed that secondary fire on Sojourn, and ever since they've kind of been boosting the primary fire. Look, I personally prefer the old Sojourn, so I am definitely biased. But I think they're pushing Sojourn too much in the direction of Soldier. I don't know. I need to try this. Echo, base health reduced from 250 to 225. Hanzo, his base health was reduced from 250 to 225. Now, this HP nerf is not necessarily about his mobility, but it is because he has a lot of long-range potential, and he can one-shot those targets that were nerfed to 225. And Blizzard wants them to fight at even odds. Now, I know Hanzo mains are not going to be happy about this, but in a way it makes sense. Torbjorn. His base health was reduced from 250 to 225, while his base armor was increased from 50 to 75. So what they're doing here is swapping some HP for armor. It definitely should help him to stay alive, especially when he's getting targeted by certain characters that have a difficult time dealing with armor. Time for the supports, and we're starting out with the addition of Juno to the roster, the new hero. There are a series of changes that they did after that test weekend in Season 11. Let's have a look. Juno's base health was reduced from 250 to 225, which is, again, that mobility tax. The deploy range on her hyperring was increased by 3.5 meters, and the cooldown was reduced from 16 to 14 seconds. When it comes to her pulsar torpedoes, the damage and healing impact was increased from 75 to 85, but the healing over time was reduced from 60 to 50. And then there's Orbital Ray, her ultimate. The beam travel speed was increased from 1.9 to 2.25 meters per second. And her Medi Blasters have the burst projectile volley rate of fire reduced from 34 to 28 shots per second. After that test weekend, Blizzard said that the feedback was rather mixed. Overall, she was in a good place. She was doing good. But some people felt like she was underwhelming, while others thought she was overpowered. Which kind of proves my point that it is very difficult to assess a new hero in just a few days. Which doesn't mean that the test weekends are not viable or not useful. They definitely are, but we should not kind of form our opinion based on those few days. Luckily, Blizzard has other tools. They have their data. And when they looked at the data, they noticed that her healing output was insane. She was actually on the same level as Lifeweaver and Mercy, which was never their intention. So what they are doing is kind of upping her utility while kind of bringing down that healing output. I think that is a smart choice. Up next, Kiriko. Her base health was reduced from 250 to 225. The critical multiplier on her kunai Naus was reduced from 2.5 to 2. The damage, however, was increased from 45 to 60, while the recovery time was increased from 0.5 to 0.55 seconds. It seems that Kiriko was underperforming in Season 11. She was not winning enough games. She was not contributing enough. So, on one end, they're nerfing her HP because of the mobility. They're also making her damage output more consistent, less reliant on the crits. Which is okay, I guess, but I am always very worried when they start boosting the damage on Kiriko. There's already too many DPS players that queue as support, but we'll see. Yari. The maximum ammo on her solo rifle was reduced from 16 to 14. And the projectile environment collision size on Captive Sun was reduced from 0.15 to 0 meters. In other words, her ult is not going to get stuck on walls or other objects. Mercy. Mercy's base health was reduced from 250 to 225. We know that one by now. On her Kadisha staff, the primary fire healing was increased from 55 to 60 health per second, while the secondary fire damage boost was increased from 25 to 30%. So on one end there's the mobility tax, but she's going to be doing a lot more healing and damage boosting. Now, I am not a Mercy player. I literally never play it. So I'm going to ask you guys that play Mercy, are you happy with these changes? Let me know in the comments. Moira. Her base health reduced from 250 to 225. The secondary fire damage on her Biotic Grasp was increased from 60 to 65 damage per second. It's the same comment I had with Kiriko. I don't know why we keep boosting Moira's damage, and I don't think Moira is underperforming, to be honest. I'm kind of done with these Moiras with triple digits of healing after one round. But they do outdamage both of the DPS. It's frustrating because I'm always the other support, and I have to work 3 times as hard. Lucio. His base health reduced from 250 to 225, and the primary fire damage on his Sonic Amplifier was increased from 18 to 22. Look, I can't be mad at the Lucio buff. He is still my boy, the first hero I ever played. Technically still my support main, but again, buffing the DPS on the support. Although in this case, Lucio is not one of those hybrid support players. Well, he can be, but we don't see that happening too much anymore. Not on my level at least. So I would say that in this case, it's okay. Did I talk myself out of that? Did I? Okay, cool. And then the final one, Lifeweaver, with a bit of a rework. It's very small. The duration on his paddle platform only counts down while the platform is raised. The platform also resets if no one is standing on it for 2 seconds. And the duration was increased from 10 to 12 seconds, while the health was reduced from 400 to 300. His Healing Blossom. Healing progress can now be charged passively at a reduced rate, and there's no longer reduced movement speed when holding a full charge. And then on his rejuvenating dash, the healing was reduced from 60 to 45. Like, that paddle change makes a lot of sense. It's a very strong tool in his kit, but it always has been kind of clumsy. Kind of felt like you were jumping out of an airplane with a parachute that did not have a reserve in there. To be fair, I think you might have just strapped on a backpack. In this new version, it kind of behaves like an elevator. It can be used more than once, and it will not be ruined by someone accidentally walking over it. Now, when it comes to that whole duration, it is going to be hard to assess, because it's only going to count down when it's up in the air, but it can come down after 2 seconds, and then someone steps on it, goes back up, and then you have the full, I don't know. The Healing Blossom change is meant to help him switch a little more easy between DPSing and healing, to make it less risky, to make it worth it. While the rejuvenating dash nerf is kind of like his mobility tax, I guess. I think overall, Lifeweaver started out as a very lackluster hero. The controls were broken, he felt very clumsy, and his output was just lacking. Over time, they kind of have duct taped them back together, and the way they did that was by just boosting his output, to the point where he currently is standing next to Mercy when it comes to pure healing output. But secretly, he still has all of that utility in his kit. And now over the last few seasons, they have been slowly polishing him, helping Lifeweaver to rediscover his utility, which is slowly making him in one of the most underestimated support heroes on the whole roster. I mean, he's been doing very well for a while now. In any case, those were all of the balancing changes that we're seeing in Season 12. What do you think about all of these changes? Let me know in the comments. For now, however, that was it. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. It always helps me out. I also want to thank my patrons. I could not make these videos without you guys. You have my eternal gratitude. If you have a few minutes left, maybe check out this video. Click it. But above all, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye bye.